Hello, and welcome to Wednesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we have a treat. This was or one of the puzzles used in the grand final of the Times Crossword Championship, won by Mark, so it should be interesting to get him to record a video on this puzzle as well, and his thoughts when he solved it live. We know it took Mark about 6 minutes, I guess, 6 or 7 minutes, which I think is a pretty staggering time, to be honest. This is a fantastic puzzle, but it is anything but easy. It's the opposite of yesterday. If you're just beginning your journey on the Times crossword, this probably isn't the place to start, other than to work through this video and admire what the set is doing. So without further ado, I'm going to go through most of the clues fairly quickly. I might give one or two a bit more discussion, because there's a couple that certainly warrant it. Let's take a look at one across. Key rings unable to be brought up. I mean, the first thing to say about this is a feature of this setter is how well he phrases clues. So this reads pretty naturally, and also cleverly if you're an experienced solver of cryptic crosswords, because key rings unable. When I read that, I'm thinking I need to put a word for a key, maybe a computer key like ESC or ALT. I need to ring a word that might mean unable. And then we've got to be brought up as well, which can sort of have indications of reversals. But eventually, what you need to do is to realise that rings here is hinting at double O. Two rings in the sense of two letters O, and a key is a tab. And if you can come up with that construction, unable to be brought up, if something's unable to be brought up, it's taboo. So very nice. Go straight to 2 down, because we've seen a clue like this before. I can't remember what the day was, but I remember doing an early video in this Cracking the Cryptic series where we talked about a very similar clue. It didn't involve Madison County, but it involved some other reference to some place in the States. And here the answer is Bucks, and the way you need to read it is funds in Madison. And obviously Madison being a place in the US, funds there would be dollars, so bucks, and the county in England, Bucks. So it's a nice clue, but luckily for me anyway, when I solved it, I had sort of seen a variant of this before. 3 down, fail to limit fare before passing through duty free. The key to solving this clue is to be able to pass where the definition sits in the clue. So fail to limit would be a very reasonable guess at what the definition was, but actually here it's fail to limit fare, and fare in the sense of food. So pause the video if you need to, but can you think of a word 7 letters long that means fail to limit food at 3 down? I'm sure you all can, but the answer is overeat. And then we've got before, which is ear, E-R-E, passing through. 0 VAT is the duty free, and that's why that's got a question mark, because obviously the O here isn't really a 0, it's a letter O, but with the question mark I think the punny nature of it is allowable and very clever. 4 down's probably the easiest clue in the puzzle, cold sauce for prune. So those of you following the series will know cold is very, very often abbreviated to C. And so if we go with that as a starting point, we need a 3-letter word that means sauce to add to this, with the whole thing being a word for prune. Pause again if you need to. The answer is clip. This clue I think I discussed in my review of the championship a few weeks ago. It's another fantastic surface. So frantic chase with army ducking shots. It conjures up an image of a you know, soldiers being mowed down by machine guns or something. But in fact, it's an anagram. Frantic is the anagram indicator here, and it's an anagram of chase and army. And ducking shots has nothing to do with bullets, it turns out, but it's to do with photographic shots. And if you duck those shots, you're camera shy. Absolutely brilliant clue. And that crosses with this feat of genius as well. 5 down. So upset stomach in the end for Burger King fan, which, you know, again is a superb surface. You know, I can tell you here that the definition is in fact king fan. Now, the setter has been allowed a little bit of license here, and I think it's fair enough. I mean, king, I don't think. Well, maybe it can have a capital in this sense. To be honest, it is fair. And I'll tell you the rest of it is an anagram so upset is an anagram indicator, and you need to anagram the letters of stomach, in, and the end for burger being the letter R, i.e. the last letter of burger. And if you shuffle those around, you can come up with the word monarchist, which is a king fan, obviously. I can't tell you how many people will have spent quite a while working on upset stomach being a reversal of TUM at the start of the clue for tum. Well, yeah, that would normally be correct, but not in this case. Let's have a look here. No, actually, that's a difficult word. We'll go here first. This was another relatively straightforward clue. Asian dog covering miles. Well, here you need to come up with a 5-letter word for an Asian, a 4-letter word for a dog that you're going to surround or put around the outside of the letter M, which is again a common abbreviation for miles. So the answer there is Tamil. 8 down. One of my favourite clues the last few months, a single chicken sandwich. Again, very reasonable sounding sentence. How can this be a cryptic clue? Well, here, believe it or not, the definition is a single. So you might now be able to get it, given the letters we've got in the grid. It's an old single from the 60s, one of the most famous singles probably of all time. The answer is yellow submarine. So chicken, if somebody is chicken, they're cowardly. So yellow is a synonym for cowardly, and a sandwich is a submarine. Brilliant. Calling for cuts on winning resume. 7-2. So the definition here is resume. A resume is a summing up. You may then say, but why? Why is the answer summing up? How does calling for cuts on winning tell us that how is that wordplay? Well, you need to realise that calling for can be summoning. And if you cut the on from the word summoning, you get the word summing. And if you're winning, you're up. If you're winning in a match, you're up in it. So that's how the wordplay works. Not easy. And we're lucky we had a couple of letters in that could get us to the right answer. Well, this is now sort of more doable. Tee off straight, feeling pity for others once. So this is an old word which means feeling pity for others. And that's what the once is indicating here. So it's certainly not a word I would have been confident existed, but the rest of it gives you a good hint. So tee off is saying take the letter T off an 8-letter word that means straight. So have a look at what we've got in the grid and see if you can come up with a suggestion for that. The answer is ruthful, with truthful losing its T. Tag game outside involved tariff. Yes, I'm shaking my head in admiration again. I mean, the way to get this, I think, is to come up with the game. So you can see an instruction there, I think, in the middle of the clue. Game outside. Yeah, that suggests we need to put the name of a game outside something else. Involved tariff is a bit of a mystery still, but let's try and come up with the name of a game ending in O. I mean, there are two I can think of immediately, or three. There's Loo, L-O-O, which I think is a game. I might be misremembering that. There's Polo, of course, which doesn't fit with the letters, and there's just a simple game Go. Let's go with that. Now we might be able to come up with a word that goes in here, and then we can see how it breaks down. So the word is graffito, and tag here is being, I think, in graffiti terms, people tag things all the time, and involved tariff is an anagram of tariff, involved indicating that we need to involve the letters somehow, to shuffle them. Like this young lady from East African Port. Well, it's another very good surface. Here we need to realise that we're looking for the name of an African port, and I'm thinking, you know, many people just write in the answer here, so let's do that and work out why. So Lagos, Nigeria, we've got like this is so, young lady, a gal, G-A-L, and from the east is saying reverse the word so and the word gal, and that gives you the word Lagos. Very nice. Like to dig into top grub prepared here. Now, this is almost a sort of and lit. So, like to dig into. I hope people who are following the series can see that to dig into is an instruction. It's saying that we need to put a word that means like in the middle of something else. Here, it looks like it's an anagram of the letters top grub. Because top grub prepared would be 7 letters. So if we can come up with a 2-letter word that means like, we can put that in the middle. And then here, question mark, is hinting that we can read the wordplay here quite literally, i.e. the answer will be somewhere where you would like to eat food. I'm sure you've all got it, especially given the letters we've got in the grid. The answer there is gastropub, with as being put in the middle of the anagram of top grub. Where should we go now? I don't want to do that one because it would give so many starting letters, and when I solved this puzzle I didn't get one down very quickly. So let's do this one. Did Rebel call the wrong way? It'll prove a bloomer. So again, as with many of these clues, I think the easiest way to solve it, bizarrely enough, is to firstly correctly spot the definition, secondly guess at a word that gives you that answer, thirdly prove that that word is correct, because I think to get it from the wordplay here is really difficult. So you need to work out that it'll prove a bloomer is the definition here. So it's something that will become a flower. And with that R at the start, that is a really helpful letter. So you might come up with rosebud, which will become a flower, obviously. Did rebel. If you did rebel, you rose, i.e. rose being a word for to rebel. And then call the wrong way is dub reversed. So rosebud, as I say, if you got it from the wordplay there, well played. I don't think that's easy at all. This clue is obviously doable. Periodically varsity hymn gets a complaint. Now, even without the word periodically in there, I would be looking at the words varsity hymn and thinking, goodness me, that's a strange collection of letters. Why has the setter used these letters, these particular letters in the clue? But the word periodically gives it away. It's because he needs to use these exact letters in this exact order. So we need to take alternate letters from this phrase varsity hymn. And you can see if you do that, you can take an A, and then an S, and then a T, an H, and an M. You give an A to that collection of letters. Get A is saying give an A to that, and you get a word, a complaint. Asthma is obviously a complaint. Treasure for Paris. Treasure for Paris Commune Le Havre's seized back. Well, again, I don't think this is too difficult. Treasure for Paris. It's quite a good idea to have a passing knowledge of the characters from the Trojan War because they come up all the time. Paris famously stole Helen from Menelaus, I think. So, and you can see Helen is reversed there in Commune Le Havre. 28 down, I'm sure some people get this wrong, especially when you see you see writer there. So writer, you're probably already thinking of done. I know I was. So you have to be careful in this sort of situation. Just make sure that that is the writer required, because there is another one. Writer, quite slowly, knocking out leading article. Well, yeah, as I say, quite slowly. Anything referencing tempo of something in a Times crossword can often be referenced to speed in terms of musical speed. And quite slowly, if something's quite slowly, it's andante. If we knock out the leading article there, the an, so an isn't obviously an article, then we get Dante, not done. And Dante is the correct answer. So we've got 13 down. Chirpy Australian doctor on a run after shift. So another lovely surface. Yeah, I think this is a brilliant clue. I mean, the definition here, believe it or not, is chirpy Australian. Now, hopefully, you're used to these crosswords enough now to realise that we mustn't think of chirpy in the sense of, you know, somebody who's happy. We must think of it in a cryptic sense. So chirpy is telling us that the answer is going to be the name of an Australian bird. So how does the rest of it work? Well, doctor on a run could very reasonably be said to be indicating it's an anagram of on a run, but in fact it isn't here. It's actually a three-letter word for doctor, followed by A, followed by R, being an abbreviation for run in a cricketing sense. And that all follows a five-letter word which means shift. I'd encourage you to pause it here if you haven't got this. Give it some thought. It's a very nice clue. Tell you the word for doctor is rig. And the answer is budgerigar. Now 26 across, I'm sure many will get it just looking at the letters. Bourbons knocked back by this general, a vulgar boring soldier. Well, you might, unless your history is very good, you might not quite understand the definition here. I think Garibaldi was a general who attacked or invaded the Bourbons back in the day. And then we've got helps if I could spell it, a ribald or a ribald, depending on how you like to say that word, being a vulgar, and then a word that means vulgar. Boring is saying put that inside, bore into, in the sense of drill into, if you like, an abbreviation for a soldier, which in this instance is GI. So again, one of these clues that I think not easy at all unless you get a couple of letters to help you, but then very easy because once you have the I at the end, there are very few things that fit. Sally hasn't got over fight. Nice surface. The key you have to remember here is that over, as well as indicating, you know, reversal in a down clue, can indicate the letter O. And this is again a cricket reference, I think. You know, if somebody bowls an over, you use a little O to indicate how many overs they've bowled. So we need a 5-letter word for Sally. For Sally, where we're going to remove the O from that word, and the whole thing will mean fight. Again, pause and type the answer now. The answer is fray, with foray being the Sally. Okay, so we're getting there. So let's go here. Loudly entering drunk, sense I might get duped. So here again, not easy to pick up the definition. The way to do it is to realise that loudly very often is again the musical reference to if something is marked in such a way on a score, a musical score, it would use the letter F. So loudly entering drunk. We need a 3-letter word for a drunk. We're going to put the F inside and we get soft. And that's a relatively known type of construction, I'd say, for experienced solvers of the crossword. Even if they haven't seen it in that exact language before, it's something that would be occurring to people. And then we need a 5-letter word, which means sense, and the answer is somebody who might get duped. Somebody's a soft touch, gullible, or an easy mark. Flyers in tropics giving clue for bananas. Well, it's a nice clue, this. The answer is obviously the name of some tropical flyers, as it says. And then, interestingly, the answer would also be a valid cryptic clue for the word bananas. So it's a double definition clue. Bananas is in, obviously bananas are fruit, and if you're bananas you're mad, which bats can mean mad, so fruit bats is the answer there. Obviously they're tropical flyers. And that's a difficult one. Let's look at this one. Plaintiff's back, behind person who won't be appealing. Now, again, well, the setter has given us a way of telling which side of the clue is the definition here, because plaintiff's back should be making everybody think of the letter F, the last letter of the word plaintiff. But what does it mean? Behind person who won't be appealing. Well, here again, the trick is to be able to carve the clue up into the right in the right way. The definition here is actually person who won't be appealing, which means that if we're right about plaintiff's back, we need a 4-letter word that means behind, that we're going to add to our plaintiff's back, and the whole thing will be somebody who isn't appealing. So again, think about it if you need to. The answer is front. Let's have a look at this. We're short of tailored clothing that's tight. Again, very succinct and reasonable surface to the clue. Now, the way to get into this clue is to appreciate what the word tailored might be doing. Hopefully you're already thinking anagram, and that would be correct. So now we need to work out how to get the right number of letters. The whole clue is 15, is that? Yes, so 15 letters we need altogether. And we're short of, that's only 11 letters. So we need to anagram we're short of to give us the start of the answer. And then we need a 4-letter word for clothing, with the whole thing meaning that's tight. Tight here is not in a clothing sense, but in a drunk sense. So again, I'd encourage you to pause if you haven't solved it. But the answer is, well, it would be a bit, let me type, the worse for wear, with wear being clothing. Not including design, leaving a waste product. So here the answer is a waste product. And then the wordplay here is very difficult. Not including is X, as a sort of prefix. If something is X, it's not including it. And then we've got design, which is creation, leaving the A. So if we remove the A from the word creation, we get accretion, and excretion is a waste product. So again, one of those answers that's really, I think, you can only be confident about once you have some checking letters in the grid and you really think about it. I'm going to leave 11 down, or 11 across to last. Go off a person in party giving a twirl. Okay, so here again the setter's clever. Giving a twirl, I'd often be thinking of anagram here, but in fact giving a twirl or a twirl is the definition. Go off here, well, we've got a good start for that. If something goes off, it rots. So looks like it starts with rot. And then a person in party could be a Tory. Rotatory, giving a twirl. 25 across. This was relatively easy, I think. Give a lift to European and others around. And others has a very common Latin abbreviation, et al. So oops. Which means we can reverse et al. And the E of European, and we get elate, give a lift to. This one again, very difficult, I think, until you had checking letters. British are out to block harsh brickbat. Well, the definition here was brickbat. British, when you see that in a clue, it's very commonly indicating the letter B. So, you know, if we look at what we've got in the grid and we try and add a B somewhere along this line, I think there's only one reasonable place for it, and that gives the answer really. Raspberry. So the way this is breaking down is British B, are out. If you're out, you E-double-R, and that's all blocking, i.e. that's all inside. Harsh, raspy, and then a brickbat is a raspberry. So, you know, again, very difficult wordplay, you know, you need checking letters. You need to really work hard to find the ways into some of these clues. And this wasn't an easy clue either. What might season reportedly be after fuss? And again, the setter misleads us. He's making, when I read this clue, as I'm sure many people read this clue, they're thinking it sounds like it's about the seasons of the year. So is it spring, summer, winter? No, it's not. It's what he's indicating a spice, or what might season something in cooking here. And then reportedly be is saying take a homophone for the word be, i.e. the letter B, and at the start put a word for fuss, 6-letter word for fuss. And there is a word for fuss which is, I think it's a bit of a crossword word, pother. It sounds very like bother, means something very similar, I think, and potherb being something that seasons. So yeah, I'm sure some of you are looking at that thinking that is brutal. You're right, very hard, but remember, Mr. Goodliff would have solved this puzzle in moments. So, you know, this is what we can aspire to. Now, I've spent quite a lot of time discussing this next clue with Mark, because it struck me as totally unreasonable that he could solve this puzzle in 6 or 7 minutes and not even spend a few seconds thinking about this clue, because I think it is it is fair, but it is very hard, and contains what could be a deliberate trap, I think. So, getting unseated, mounted fighters lost face. Well, you can see the letters. Some of you may have an idea about what the answer is, but certainly there does appear to be, at least on the surface, slight issue with this clue. So many people, I'm sure, got that message. Ousted, getting unseated, because that looks like it's the right part of speech for the definition there, which is, you know, if you're unseated, you're ousted. Now, but then that doesn't really make sense with the wordplay, which is mounted fighter's lost face. Well, I think the mounted fighter here is a jouster, which would indicate that we needed to put an R in here. Does ouster define, or does getting unseated define ouster? That's the question. I mean, the dictionary defines it as a dispossession or an ejection. But here, I mean, the critical thing is, I think, can you read getting as a noun? You know, because what I think is being implied by the clue here, in order for ouster to be the correct answer, is that we are looking at a getting unseated, a getting. You know, the action of the verb, and that's, you know, obviously getting can be a noun. But I think it's a very, you know, it's certainly not something that you would see in ordinary speech to describe an ouster. You wouldn't say, that's a getting unseated. So the setter has used, you know, the full value of the dictionary in coming up with this definition, and I'm quite sure that in the back of his mind he was aware that it looks so like the answer must end in D here, because, you know, one reading of the clue would be that the wordplay is giving or getting you a word that means unseated, and unseated on its own could only be ousted. So absolutely brutal. You needed to put an R in there, and if you did, you'd have got this message, the correct answer. So I hope this is a helpful run through. Sometimes it's worth doing these more detailed reviews on the really outstanding puzzles, and this was certainly one of those. So thanks to the setter, and thanks for watching. See you again next time. Cryptic.